Jess Day, welcome to Australian Musician.
Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. We're talking to you today about your debut album, Garden of Small Disappointments, which comes out on October 11.
Yeah.
Before we get to that, I wanted to go way back. How were you exposed to music growing up in Roxby Downs in the middle of nowhere?
Mhm. My exposure to music in Roxby was pretty much just listening to the same albums that my dad had on repeat, which were just like Powderfinger, Nickelback. It was like the same 3 to 5 albums that I listened to. So that was my intro into rock music, which I have a deep appreciation for. But I just remember like going down to the library and having to borrow CDs. That way, like I'd have to hire them from the library and play them on my little CD player. But yeah, there was not a lot of live music. Dad was in like uh just a sort of like silly cover band he did with some friends occasionally at like the school Christmas pageants or whatever, but not really a live music scene at all.
Yeah. So when you were in a position to choose your own music rather than your parents' record collection, what sort of things were you getting into?
The first memories I have of the CDs I borrowed from the library were probably like Avril Lavigne. What else? Pink. I think they were a couple of the albums I had. And then Hilary Duff as well. And yeah, I sort of went from there. And then as I was a teenager, like got into sort of Paramore and just like classic sort of alt rock bands like that. And yeah, sort of snowballed from there.
Yeah. So at what point did you realize that you could be a performing and recording artist?
Hmm. I actually never intended to be a performing artist. I couldn't think of anything worse. I was a real introverted kid. Like I was really noticeable in any school performances because I would literally stand at the back. Um, Hilariously, I was the tallest kid in my year for like all of primary school. So you would see me, but I was completely at the back and refusing to participate. I hated the spotlight. And I think that's why I actually got into music, is because I felt so different to the other kids and I was so shy and I just didn't want to be perceived. And I didn't even want to be a singer. I didn't sing in front of anyone until I was far, far older. And I was just forced to. But I liked writing songs and I liked playing guitar in the comfort of my own home. So I needed someone to sing the songs I was writing. So that fell on me. And then I also eventually, after doing that for a while, they were like, "Oh, the songs are decent. Obviously you have to play them." And I was like, "Oh no, like I can't do this." And then I had to work through it, and suddenly I was a performing artist, which I enjoy doing now, which is really funny because I could never have imagined myself playing to
Uh,
people.
it's funny, isn't it? You want to create music, but if you want to take it further, you do have to get into performing and even
Yeah,
doing things like media, which
yeah,
you don't expect that when you're
exactly.
writing songs in your bedroom to begin with.
Yeah, indeed. It's really ironic, actually.
Yeah.
Mm.
So we know you from some singles last year that got some great attention. Did you learn much from recording your previous singles that you took into this album?
Hmm. I learned to trust my abilities as a producer and to make those decisions. And um, yeah, I think a few times in my creative career, I really didn't advocate for my inner knowing of what a song needed. And I let, which is collaborative, I think the nature of collaborative stuff is that you allow other people's style and influence into your creative world. But I realized I don't actually like that. So I would like to take full creative control and then just completely exercise all the ideas I had to the nth degree, so that it was entirely my creative concept. And I realized that's something I really like doing, because if people hate it, it's completely on me, which is fine. Then I know how to improve. And then if people love it, it's also on me. So I can look back and be like, oh, I'm proud of that.
Yeah. The title of the album, A Garden of Small Disappointments. Tell me about that.
The Garden of Small A Garden of Small Disappointments is probably like quite a metaphor for as a kid you're sort of promised an abundant garden of opportunities, and then you get to your late 20s and you go, actually, it's not that fertile and abundant. And you're looking at all the things you planted that just didn't work out, which is a very late 20s thing to do. You're looking back at all the things that didn't work out, the friendships, the love, the careers, the just everything seems like it's withering, and it's narrowing it down into the things that you can actually grow in this garden that might not disappoint you. But yeah, it's a harsh realization at this age, but it's something I had to put into art.
Yeah. Most of the songs have a pretty big sound. Did you have a sonic vision for the album as a whole, or was it more just taking it track by track?
Yeah, definitely track by track. I didn't really um, think about it sonically too much. I felt like that was overwhelming to me because I I did okay at this. It was my first album, but by no means am I like incredibly well seasoned in uh, in producing. I hadn't really done heaps of it before, so I kind of just took each song as its own individual beast, and some of them I was really happy with, and some of them fell short, but that's just part of the trial and error of your first album. Um, but this is just it was kind of a random collection of songs that were worthy of existing over the last 10 years, to be honest.
Yeah. Was the track order important to you? Like, for instance, why was Old Wounds the opener and why was The Portal the closer?
Um, I listened to it all through and I just wanted them to flow into each other sonically. I think Old Wounds just struck me, the opening of that song struck me as an opener for an album. And The Portal was just so epic. The end of that really ties off the album, I think.
Yeah. Is there a track that's closer to your heart than others?
I think The Portal is really close to me. Yeah, I really resonate with that song, and I think it's got an important message. And yeah, I'm quite proud of it.
Yeah. 10 tracks on the album. Were there others that you were playing around with that didn't make the cut?
Yeah, definitely. So many didn't make the cut. Yeah, I removed one like a week before it was the deadline, so it was just yeah. There's so many great songs that didn't make it onto this album, but they might have a future down the line.
Yeah. Tell me about your home recording setup. What have you got?
I've just got a Scarlett interface. I've got NT 2A microphone. What have I got? All my guitars, Logic Pro, um, electronic drum kit. That's about it, really. It's pretty low budget. Um, and I didn't mix it myself. I really think that's important to mention as well, is that I got Jared Nettle to mix the album, and he's exceptionally good. And sort of any where I fell short in recording or stuff like that, he was able to help polish it how it needed to. So it's symbiotic in that nature.
Yeah. Do you recall? Sorry. Do you enjoy the copy and pasting of files and tweaking with them on the computer?
Oh my God, I hate it so much. There is no joy in recording for me. It was a slog. I like writing the songs and I like playing the songs, but you're also not getting paid for it. Like this is days and hours of labor that you don't enjoy, that you're not getting financially incentivized to do either. So it was just I was like, oh my God. By the end of the album, I was getting lazy and I was just like, this will do. This will do. I cannot do this anymore. Because listening to your own voice as well under under a microscopic lens and editing yourself constantly is just a psychological torture of sorts.
Tell me about your guitars. Are any stories been acquiring them?
That's a great question. I the electric guitar I used mainly on the album was my Telecaster. And I've had that. That was my first electric guitar. That was the first guitar I bought. And it's still my favorite guitar. I've had that since I was 16. And it served me very well. It's beautiful. It's sunburst. It's just gorgeous. And then I used my dad's Maiden, which is very old now. It's probably about almost 40 years old. And it's the most beautiful guitar anyone I know has ever played and I've ever played. And it's this beautiful sunburst raw wood Maiden. It hasn't got a lacquer on it or anything. It's just magical. I think that's the first thing I would grab in a house fire. So dad's very much had to give up that one because I sort of imprinted on it. And then he bought a newer Maiden that was quite expensive, expecting it was going to be the same, and it's just not. And I feel really bad because I've completely just stolen it from him. But yeah, bless him, he gave that one up.
So is that where a lot of the songs come from, that Maiden?
Absolutely, yeah.
You've toured with King Stingray, Spacey Jane, Holy Holy, Amy Shark. What kind of things do you learn being on tour with people like that?
I think, without sounding rude to like upcoming musicians and stuff, when you see a band that has been on tour for that long and has played so many shows, they are just a well-oiled machine. Like, it's truly something magical to experience a band who has been on tour for that long. They're just a step above the stuff you see sort of in your day-to-day life. It's actually phenomenal to witness how fine-tuned they become on some of those bigger tours that you're watching them do. Like, it's actually incredible. Yeah.
But how are these new songs scrubbing up live for you? Did you road test many of them before you recorded them?
I didn't road test any of them, actually. And so I was pleasantly surprised when we had our first practice, and I was like, oh yeah, these translate really well.
Yeah. You've got some dates in November. I gather that's with a band.
Yeah, absolutely. Full band. Yeah.
What's the band lineup?
So I've got Angus on drums, Anthony on bass guitar. On the Adelaide show, I'll have Cherie from My Cherie playing bass, just to fill in. And I've got my partner Zach on lead guitar, and they are just exceptional musicians, and I wouldn't be able to do it without them.
Yeah. Do you think the songs will develop the more you play them?
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll be quite interested to see which ones resonate with the crowd in a live setting, because that's always very different. The energy you get from certain songs live is surprising, in the sense that it's often maybe not like the singles that did the most well. It can surprise you, so I'm keen to see that.
Yeah. And what songs are you enjoying playing live?
The Portal sounds great, obviously. I think that's maybe just because it's my favorite song, but Softness is going to sound pretty cool live as well. Drinking for Two sounds really great as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I believe you have an interest in the occult. I'm wondering in what way does that come into your life?
Into my life. Interestingly, I've distanced myself slightly from it. I felt I was maybe delving into the dark a bit more than I should have. And I had to sort of pull back on that for a little bit. But I think historically it's led me to understand that I can't really conceive of a grand plan for myself that maybe the universe has intended. And I just have to let go and trust that to a degree. And that might be codswallop, but it helps me sleep at night. So I sort of cling to that. I think it's very natural for humans to hope for something greater, orchestrating finite details of their life. But yeah, I've definitely delved into divination and stuff like that. I think it's also very natural to want certainty in the future. And I think things like tarot or even like angel cards and stuff that people use is such a fascinating psychological phenomenon, because whether it's real or not, these decks always contain archetypal repeated motifs of the human condition that will always exist throughout humankind for thousands of years. And the way they're presented on a table makes you creatively think and funnel how you're feeling about your own life into this story, and you're making up your own story that makes tangible sense to you. And I think it's really creative in that sense. It's a creative task. But yeah, it's very interesting psychologically. So whether it's real or not, I think it can be a really useful tool for making sense of your life.
Yeah. If money was no issue, what would a Jess Day concert look like?
Hmm. Or it'd probably have like a light show, because that's something I just like can't really afford at this stage of my career is someone doing lighting. But I feel honestly, lighting techs go underrated, because that can make or break a show. Like I played one show fully lit, like just like the auditorium stage lights were on, and it felt like I was playing a school assembly, and there was no vibe. And I've played shows where there was just some sweetheart on the lighting, probably mixing sound at the same time and doing some crazy light stuff, and it just like brings it up a notch. So I'd have a planned lighting situation.
Yeah. You've got some gigs in November. What's on after that and into 2025?
Um, After that, I'm just going to see how I go. I think I'm just going to take a little bit of a break from music. It's been a huge couple of years, and I really like emptied my last reserves making this album. So I just want to have a little bit of me time, and then come back to it after a nice little break.
Yeah. All right, Jess. Well, A Garden of Small Disappointments is out October 11. It's been great to chat. All the best with the album, and we'll catch you next time.
Lovely. Thanks so much for having me, Greg.